Greetings. My name is Mahialani Uchiyama, Director of the Center for International Dance. Welcome to Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora. Dare is a production of the African American Mbira Project, an initiative to perpetuate the music and tradition of the Mbira within the African American community. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I reside in the Bay Area, a land contemporarily known as Ohlone territory. There are 8 language dialects and many active tribal groups. With Dare, we aspire to explore the music of Zimbabwe and other performance traditions which exist in the diaspora. Our conversations with artists will focus on their art form and their personal journey. Additionally, you will have a chance to ask questions of our guests. Piwai is a vocalist, songwriter, Mbira player, and percussionist from Zimbabwe. Her CD, African Turquoise, reflects that which is most sacred in Africa, the gift of life and its perpetual progression. Her music takes the listener on a journey through the eyes of children of Congo, on the streets of Harare and Soweto, and through the favelas of Brazil. I am delighted to welcome Piwai.
Hanamai huyaiti namate, Asikana huyaiti namate, Vakamana huyaiti namate, ya mambo, ya hondende. Anamai huyaiti namate, Vasikana huyaiti namate, Vakamana huyaiti namate, mambo, ya hondende. Vamos dari wamanonesa, vamos dari wamanosusha. Kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka. Upenyu kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka. Upenyu kutamane madaka, kutamane madaka. Thank you, Mahia, for having me here. I'm so delighted to be here as part of Dare.
That was so beautiful, Piwai. Thank you so much. I have to say, I knew of you and your music well before we had a chance to meet. And I have been, fangirling on that. I'm just really thrilled that we have gotten into each other's orbit, as I really love your music and your vibe. So thank you for being a part of this production, this program here. So when we first met, I remember you were sharing some stories about how you had been surrounded by music and dance really since your early childhood. And I wonder if you'd be kind enough to tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. I'm from Zimbabwe. And I remember my memories of music really was centered around when we went to our rural home in Wedza in Zimbabwe. Um, and this was visiting my grandmother, and we always went with one or two aunts from my family or my uncles. And I remember, you know, around firelight every night, and when we had events like funerals, somebody getting married, there was always a component of music, in a sense that it was just a part of us. Whether someone was telling a folklore, there was always a music, a song. There was always somebody playing drums, or we were playing drums, trying to imitate our uncles who were very, very amazing percussionists. And so music was just a part of me. And even when I lived in the city in Harare, um, music also came in, as part of growing up in Zimbabwe. A lot of us are syncretic, meaning that we follow our traditional Zimbabwean practices, our ancient practices, and we took on the colonizers' practices of Christianity. And even then, we had music in the church. I went to a very musical church, where, thank God, around that time we had a bishop, and he was called Bishop Patrick Chikaipa, who instituted the movement of traditional instrumentation into the Catholic Church. And so my church really embraced that. So we were playing, drums, we were playing hosho in church and singing. And sometimes, some composers flipped traditional songs into Christian songs. So it was always a part. There was always that part. And then I remember, as a young person in my home, every night we never went to bed without congregating in the kitchen and just busting out songs, or some crazy songs, or stuff we heard on the radio, or somebody just creating stuff off the cuff. So
Sweet. I love that idea of singing in your kitchen before you tuck in for the night. In your church, did they involve Mbira as well as the Ngoma and Hosho?
no, also Mbira, even up to this day, has not been included into the church. But I'm sure there are other churches that are trying to bring it in. And I'm sure if Bishop Patrick Chipkaipa was alive, he would have still been fighting to have Mbira into the fold of particularly the Catholic Church. But it'll be interesting if we could have, like the song that I came in with. That's more like a kind of like Namate is "Come Let Us Pray," because that's what Mbira music does. It's that center. You're getting people into prayer mode basically, but you're doing it in an ancient way without involving, for me, Christianity. I mean, that is just my belief. So yeah.
And the Mbira would not have been included, largely because it still has that it's attached in a lot of people's minds to something that's not, that spirit it's definitely spiritual, but not in the way that is considered by some to be positive spirituality.
Correct. So there's still a stigma around Mbira music even in present day Zimbabwe, even among Zimbabweans themselves. I remember when I first picked up the Mbira, it took me quite a while to let my parents know that I had started playing Mbira. But luckily my parents blessed that, because, my dad, I remember, he just like, your great grandfather played Mbira, so we're not surprised someone did that. Or my great grandmother played Ngoma, and so we're not entirely surprised that you do that. But there is a stigma around, because there's the association with what we say in Shona is the Vadzimu, the Tate Guru, invoking our ancestral lineage, which had been castigated as an evil form of quote unquote religious evil worship, which is not. I've embraced that as a form of, being in touch with yourself. And there is nothing evil about the Mbira. There is, there are people who've used Mbira for evil purposes, but in essence, Mbira was always there to bring people together, to heal people, to bring healing. which at the time I'm a big fan of reading about. There was some writings put out by the Catholic Church called, I think, the Oikumene readings, where they were apologizing to traditional Africans, particularly the Shona as well, for having not understood what this culture was doing, that we had our own form of worship, and it's not a religion, it's the spirituality part of it. And that's what's carried our people with Mbira spirituality, carried the Shona people, or basically all the people who are in present day Zimbabwe through the first Chimurenga War. We have our heroes such as Chaminuka, who died playing the Mbira. Like, well, I don't know if he actually died, but we know that the Mbira protected him while he was under persecution. And so, yeah, it was always castigated as evil and misunderstood. And even to this day, it's misunderstood, especially by what I call Christian zealots. They attack the Mbira a lot. But I think there needs to be that conversation where we really fully understand what that means. Yeah.
And do you think that conversation is happening in Zimbabwe fully these days? I mean, we're having that conversation here about other forms of spirituality, but what's going on in Zimbabwe? Do you think that there are more and more people re-embracing the Mbira as a heritage tradition?
I think there's a reckoning in Africa today, not just in Zimbabwe, of self-identity and what that means in light of the world events, right? So I would like to think that there's a conversation that's happening, but it kind of started a while back when we had this plethora of, or minority of Zimbabweans who embarked on the Mbira and brought it to the world stage. Let's go back to like 60s, 70s, when it was being used during the war, all the way into like Dumisani Maraire, all the way to Mbuya Stella Chiweshe, all the way into like, say, Chiwoniso, where there's this reawakening of people. So I feel like there is a conversation that right now, I want to just kind of like pay my respects to somebody who's like at the forefront of, I don't know if it's a conversation, but really making sure they bring the Mbira, and not just the Vadzimu, but also the Nyunga Nyunga instrument. His name is Trust Mutegwa. He goes by Ticha Muzavazi, and he's been doing such an amazing job in terms of spreading the beauty of the Mbira music. And we have people here in the West who have been doing that as well. Not just Zimbabweans, but we have a plethora of them. But I feel like their recognition is still very, very minimalized, and their contributions to the survival, so to speak, because I feel like Mbira could have easily just died. I remember when I started playing, specifically being horrified by what I saw on Wikipedia, where it said that Mbira came from the western part of the United States. And here I am, a young girl coming to the West, trying to find my identity, and I just felt like everything got stripped off of me. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I feel like the young people in Zimbabwe are having this conversation. We have some groups of people here also having this conversation. So, yeah, there's a lot happening that obviously I'm not aware of a lot of it, but there are some conversations happening around Mbira music for sure.
And we are all engaging in that conversation here about, how the music of Mbira lives here in the West as well as other parts of the planet, how it is, in fact, a world musical tradition that is rightly recognized and enjoyed everywhere, but to whom does it actually belong? Who has the right to to represent the music is one of those conversations that we're all having. I wonder if you could share with us how it is that you'd mentioned that you didn't grow up playing Mbira, but it came to you, or you came to it. And could you tell us a little bit about what that was for you?
Yes, happily I can, and also I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood. Yes, Mbira music came to me very unexpectedly and maybe timely, I would like to say. Um, Sorry, I tear up when I tell the story. Um, I was a young girl trying to assimilate into a Western culture. So I'd had a series of very devastating, I guess, events. Particularly, it was a car accident that I was in that left me very depressed for about a year. So it was a very lonely time. And at the time, I was touring with a Congolese band around the United States as a backup singer and a dancer. And one of the people in the band handed me a CD that had the music of Maungira and Narira, and they had their song called Toputika Neshungu, you know. And I started listening to that, and it just uplifted me in ways that I can't recall. So at that point, I realized music was my rescue. Not just at the time, I'd just been doing music. I was trying to be like Mariah Carey, all that stuff. I was doing all of that, but that just brought a whole new sense of awakening inside of me, and it took me out of that depression. And I started trying to figure out who this group of guys were when they were singing the Toputika Neshung, which is a variation of Nehondo, in the classical sense of Mbira. And that just did something in my heart. And then right after that, I was transitioning from the southern part of the United States, coming to the West Coast, and I couldn't stop playing the song, and it just did. And then I realized, oh my God, it's Nehondo. I knew the song. I knew the song. I'd heard the song before. I sang to it, and this particular song had no lyrics in it. It was just they were just whistling and Mbira, pure Mbira and whistling, and that's all they were doing, and humming and doing mahongera, we call it, and that just drew me so much into the Mbira. And I started having a series of dreams that at the time I couldn't understand, except my father would be the one to explain them to me. And he started telling me, like, you do have a gift, and I think the gift is coming, but I don't know what it is. But you need to just listen to your dreams. Tell me when you have these dreams, and they just started being, recurring. And I remember having a dream about a man that I needed to go meet, and I was like, who's this man? I'm like, I have no idea. While I was trying to figure out who this person I needed to meet, the dream kept coming, and then he's like, all I could see was Mbira in my hands, this man handing me Mbira. And I couldn't put a face to it. I mean, I had never heard of the man before. And then one time I just said, you're going to receive a message from the person. And this was around the time when Facebook was just busting out in the scene. And I was like one of the first few adopters. And I got a message from this man who, weirdly, and I'm like, I don't know who it is. So I just kind of like, okay, whatever, just ignored it and took a journey across the country where I had this out of body experience as I was listening to, again, the same song. I'd been listening to it constantly and consistently. I'll drive for miles just on that one song. And I just had this out of body experience, and this whole revelation just came to me. And yeah, I knew who the man was. I mean, it was revealed to me who the man was and where I needed to be, like specific details of where I needed to be. I had to travel back across the country again to meet the same man. And then I got handed my Mbira, and he told me that, well, you have a lot of work on your hands. And I was very scared because I was like, people don't play Mbira anymore. Or like, what am I, Christianity, this and that. And so that's been my journey. So that's how Mbira came to me.
Yeah, I've had this an experience similarly coming out of a period of depression where a song just sort of speaks to you, and you just keep going back to it. Yeah. You go back to it, and it's a profound thing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, I wonder if you would be willing to talk to us a little bit about Sekuru Makaya.
Yes. So the man that was in my dream, thank you for bringing that up. So may his soul rest in peace. He just left us this year under, due to COVID-19. And it's been sad. That's been probably the saddest part of my year because um, there was some work that we kind of were trying to put together, but unfortunately the universe had other plans. But Cosmos Magaya was the man that was revealed to me in my dreams. And it just so happens that the confusion for me at the time was it was someone with my last name, and I thought it was my family. And I was just like, I'm also Magaya, and I didn't know this person. I was like, who is this man? So I asked my dad, and he was like, oh, actually, yeah, he's we know him. He's from Mondoro. We are Magayas. We have different totems. In Zimbabwe, we find our relations via totems, but our relations really are more from my mother's side, who's from that region, that part of Zimbabwe. But yes, the man in my dreams I was directed to go and meet, who sent me a message, just like my dreams say on Facebook. I just like, I'm in the United States. You need to come and see me at Duke University. I have something to give you. And so I just followed that. And that's how my life got intertwined with Cosmos Magaya. And ever since, whenever he would come on tour by via different folks that brought him over, I always had the opportunity to play with him, host him at my house. We had one of my biggest concerts that I've played at the very beginning was at the Neurosciences Institute in San Diego, where I had the chance to core. We got billed the same together, and that was just such an honor. And it was the first time I got to play with the Mbira at his level, and it was very nerve-wracking. It was the most because that man had spent a whole week with him, and so it was it was beautiful. I was just starting out my musical journey as a solo artist at the time, and so to have him as a mentor over the years has been inspiring. And he had a way of sending messages to me through people without them actually even knowing that they were sending a message to me, which is the beauty about the spirituality of Mbira. So he's my sort of like my other father, like the spiritual father that I had, that always guided me. He had a special way of relaying those messages, even without directly communicating with me. So it was always amazing.
That's beautiful, Piwai. I wonder if you would play us another song, please.
Yes, so I will play. I was gonna go the classical route, but I've been evolving. So this song, I don't have it out yet. I've performed it quite a bit, but it's on my African Turquoise album called it's called Child of the Soil. It means in Shona we say Mwana Wevu. I wrote it because this was the first song when I was learning the Mbira Zimu, when I was learning the Nyunga Nyunga at the same time, and getting frustrated, and also at the same time discovering myself. I started writing this song called Child of the Soil as a way to remind myself of who I am. Even in Christianity, they say on Ash Wednesday, like, remember your dust, and to dust you shall return. So this is sort of like that spin-off in the Shona traditional sense of the way. But it was also a reminder to us to be protective of our precious heritage and our precious ancestry, and in respect to who we are as Black folks or human beings, not just Black folks, but everybody else who we are all Africans. So this is just a reminder. nigga, 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 nani, 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 nigga, 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 nichama uza, nichama uza, nichama taurino, nichama uza, nichama uza, nichama taurino, nigga, 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 nini, 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 nigga, 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 hey, hey, they are changing times, they are one. What do we do? What do we say? What do we tell them? What do we do? What do we say? What do we tell them? The children, all our children. We've got rivers of oil, grass of plastic, sands of ash, fields of blood. I cry, I cry, I cry. My silly sweet, my silly sweet, I hear the thumb of your heartbreak. Child of the soul, child of the soul, you do not speak of your tongue. No, no. Nanny, 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 nigga, 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 nanny, 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 nigga, 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 nichama uza, nichama uza, nichama taurino, nichama uza, nichama uza, nichama taurino, nanny, 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 nigga, 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 nanny, 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 nigga, 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 nichama uza, nichama uza, nichama taurino.
Wow, that was so amazing. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm, mm. Whew. Well, let me let our audience know if they have any questions for PY, please feel free to write them in the comments section. And we do have one already from Moyo Reynos Mutamba, who says, thank you for this dialogue. Where can I find the readings?
The readings.
Yeah, perhaps maybe your recordings.
Recordings. Yeah, good question. So You can find them on on all the streaming platforms. So your iTunes, your Apple Music, your Pandora, Deezer, Tidal. We just right now we kind of like, well, I'm kind of like working on the offensive, trying to just redirect my music to places where it's discoverable, and also on my website pyeofficial.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, pyeofficial.com, all aboard, and even on YouTube. So yeah, just having everything realigned, and I had purposefully over the last few years kind of like kept my music under wraps, simply because there's a lot. It's a journey. So thank you.
Well, you should not keep your music under wraps. We need your music. We need to have your music. What kind of challenges or advantages have you encountered as an artist doing essentially Pan-African music? I mean, you are from Zimbabwe, but you incorporate in your performances, you know, and in your recordings as well. You know, you play multiple instruments. You play the djembe. You play the nyunga nyunga. You do Pan-African music. What
Um,
have there been any particular advantages, disadvantages, anything that you would like to?
I want to say I feel like there's certain components, like say being a woman, being a Black African woman, and being from a third world country, and just being a newcomer on the scene and being an upcoming artist. Those, depending on the situation, can work for and against me. Um, I want to start particularly with the notion of, coming to the West and, you know, having this knowledge of African music, but not actually doing it. So that was quite a journey for me. It made it easy for me to hook into different communities, into different African communities, wherever I was, like when I lived in the South and when I'm now in the Western part of the United States. Having grown up with this knowledge of very traditional ancient music or even modern music, particularly from Africa and from South America, helped me embed myself, because for me, I always wanted to travel. And so I traveled through music. So if I wanted to go to Brazil, I went and I learned something from Brazil and played, whatever it was. And so that made it easy for me to fit into certain communities where I wouldn't necessarily be found. But in the music industry, starting out, being a woman sometimes was a little bit of a disadvantage, because there are people who are vultures, and there are also people who are, people who try to take advantage of young women, and they exist. And unfortunately, I've run across them, and that was a challenge where, like, people are interested in working with you, but their conditions, their preconceived conditions, like, oh, first have an affair with me, or those kind of things. So that was always and I always took the high road, which was just chose to walk away, even though some of these people were very, I guess, even in the Mbira music circles, you'd be surprised, where there were, people in prominent places where I could have easily, my music could have easily gone a different direction had I fallen into that thing. But I guess I have different set of values, personal values. So I feel like my dad always stays in my head. So I always chose to walk away. Even though, like, there were times I could have easily done that. And so that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is just being respected as a musician. I remember busting into the Afro-Cuban percussion scene, where I remember I have scars between my legs where I was learning to play the palito sticks, or the palitos on the krar, which is like a hollow drum that was used in Cuba when they were trying to reinvent the drum. And it's also found in Africa. They were just recreating instruments that were in Africa. So I'm a master palito player also. So, but I remember I I used to go to this male dominated places where they were, they were playing. And the first time I sat there, they just looked at me like, what is she doing there? Or she needs to be away from there. But I put the crane on my, with between my legs, started playing, and they kept going instead of like stopping and ring. We played for hours, almost 3 hours nonstop, and I was just on those sticks until I was bleeding. So it was just like, but then after that, I got my sort of like quote unquote acceptance into that culture where I can play, not just the palitos or clave or the with, or even the congas, with people who are maestros or maestras in the in that field. And so that was always a thing. And then learning the djembe, I learned from people who were very accepting. I find that the djembe masters are very, very welcoming when they see women. Even though, like, traditionally, even in West Africa, most women don't play the djembe. Just like in Zimbabwe, we don't find a lot of women playing the mbira. We always relegated to like percussion. So I do play the hosho, I play the clave, I play the palito sticks. So those are sort of like the challenges. And also within the Mbira was like, oh, you're young, you don't understand the Mbira. But a lot of folks don't know my history with the Mbira itself, even though I started playing it at a very, at a much advanced stage in my life.
An advanced stage in your life. That's really adorable. So yeah, I mean, I do think it is worth keeping in mind that traditionally women in a lot of these places don't play some of these instruments, like the mbira, like the djembe, like the kora, like it's not necessarily considered something that traditionally women do. But in the modern era, some of the real well-known exponents of this music are women. So, and you're definitely one of those. So yeah, I would really love for you to let us know what you have coming up. What's new on the horizon for you? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so I want to talk about, a few days ago, I just released a song that was meant to be released a few years ago, because it had been when I write, I tend to take a long time writing. And I unfortunately wasn't able to release it because of personal reasons, health being a big contributor over the last couple of years. Just dealing with my health went down south, so to speak. And so yeah, I just released a song called Hokoyo, which we really meant to have actually released before. We were trying to capture the momentum around the time that the pandemic hit, around March. So that was our proposed release date, but we missed that because of obviously the pandemic. We wanted to have all the collateral, like actually do like a video shoot, but we ended up just using our cell phones wherever we were with my group, and we did. My band did the editing for that video, so we just like, let's let it go. So Hokoyo is out and it's available on all your playing streams. It will be available when my website goes back live this weekend. As well, so people can grab it on there, or you can just go on my Facebook particularly. We'll have the full video on there, or it's on YouTube. There's also another audio version of it on there. And I'm also in the middle of a fellowship with the Afro Urban Society. They're putting a festival called Bacchanal d'Afrique, and I'm one of the co-artists this year, the 2020 fellows. So we just went live yesterday. So it's been an interesting journey because we were being connected and been working and fellowshipping with various artists from various disciplines and in different locales in the United States, East, West, South, and in Africa, East, West, South, North, and even in Europe. and in the Caribbean, people of African descent and ancestry, um, and you know, basically in the African diaspora. So it's been very enlightening working and hearing how other folks create and their challenges and sort of like finding camaraderie and charting the paths ahead and how we deal with the pandemic as we formulate our art. And so our festival goes live this week, but the fellowship continues. So we finish in January. So every Saturday we meet. So for about 5 hours. And it's been an amazing journey. There's a lot of talented people. Some people I didn't even know of, you know, so that's one project that's happening. And I have about, so as I said, 2 days ago released Hokoyo. That's just the first domino in a series of releases. The initial plan was to release a song every month because I have a library of about 17 songs coming through. So starting this, like the last few days, I'll be releasing songs at a very constant rate until we exhaust the library. And at the same time, I'm in production as well for, I'm gonna call it like a seminal sort of like works. I'm calling it Radio Africa. So yes, so it's one song where the concept is one song on which I'll play on the Mbira that I will share with about 10 artists from who are in the African diaspora. So we're still trying to get them into the fold. So right now I'm up to 5 artists. So we're still looking for the next 5. So anybody that would like to be on that album, shoot me a message. We'll send you the details. So I'm excited about that, where it's more of how we interpret the same rhythm and same ancestral rhythm and how it moves in different places. Just like the point was I'm replicating how the Mbira evolved the physical instrument itself, because you know throughout Africa we have different forms of it. You know, they call it the sense over there, kalimba, you know, nyunga nyunga, Mbira, njari, or whatever you want to call it, and in other places. So, you know, marimbula. So that's sort of like the evolution, but I'm doing it more from a rhythmic perspective, sharing the same rhythm, but with different messages. So I want the artists to have like a different perspective, whatever it means to them, but just interpreting it from that one specific rhythm based on Mbira rhythm. And I'm still battling going on between whether I want it to be Nehondo, or whether I want it to be Nemam Sasa or Dangurango. But right now I think I've learned it. I think I landed on Dangurango. It's just a very powerful rhythm. I'm not going to play it today because I have to polish it out, but that might be the rhythm that I'll go with, but in my own way of interpreting Dangurango. So that's just how I interpret classical Mbira pieces when I delve into them. Is I like to put a nice spin on it. Well, not nice. They're already nice as they are, but I just like to put my spin on things. Just kind of playing with the different phrases in the Mbira pieces. Like I like to pull out different things from the song.
I mean, that's what happens with living art, isn't it? That there's always another way of looking at it and pulling it out, and you know, trying it in alternate ways, in new and exciting ways.
Right.
We're going to be uploading the links for the Bacchanal and also the new song, I believe, in the comments, so that as people can refer back to this, they can definitely check that out. Wow. So I just want to really thank you, Piwai, for being who you are and being willing to share so much of of your journey with us. It's incredibly powerful. It's an amazing story. And we're really fortunate to have you here, not just here in this country, but right here in the Bay Area. Um, and I'm looking forward to the day when the pandemic is over, and boy, everyone's going to get a big hug from me. Everyone, the first time I see people, it's just going to be hugs all around. But just so that we can get together and have people experience the joy of your performances. I mean, having you and your band on stage is like nothing else. So I'm
Oh,
really
thank you.
really looking forward to that. I just want to say very quickly to thank our viewers for joining us today. Thank you for the question that was submitted. Want to mention that Dare Conversations in the Diaspora is a program of the Mahea Uchiyama Center for International Dance, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering cross-cultural understanding in our community through dance and music. We'd like to encourage you to consider a donation to our nonprofit following the link on your screen. We will be back next month, Saturday, December 5th, at a special time of 7:30 p.m. with Master Congolese drummer Kiazi Malonga. Until then, I want everyone to be safe and to be well and to keep the music in your heart. And speaking of music in our heart, would you honor us with one more song to play us out, Piwai?
Yeah, so I have my djembe next to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to. You mentioned the word Pan African earlier, and this is me being my Pan African self. Which, thank God for being in the Bay Area, we get to experience even like a very amplified version of being Pan African. So I'm gonna play my djembe, which I got in beautiful country of Ghana. And I'm gonna play it with a traditional song that my grandmother taught, which happens to be a classical Mbira song. Well, for those who know how to play it, but I'm gonna play it on djembe instead. This is Mondoro Zino Nwamna Sabe. So I chose it because when I used to go to rural Zimbabwe, I always looked forward to going to the Sabe River, and my grandmother always made us sing that song. So it's a special song for me. So this is in honor of my grandmother as well. So Mondoro Zino Nwamna Sabe. 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 Thank you.
Tatenda, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Magamba kadisi ya ndachema kwaso ndidi kuwana ziminga mpinyi isidwe singu tamagamba kadisi ya ndachema kwaso